Alright everybody, please forgive the Winnie the Pooh in the background. My daughter's watching that and I'm reading her Winnie the Pooh book over there. So I'll be doing a video on how I do the splits, or how I learned to do the splits later today. Somebody was asking me about that. Just right now at this very moment, it's not convenient to do all that. But what is convenient is a knife just showed up at my door. Wasn't expecting it. It's kind of unfortunate. I want to do a review of this first impressions right out of the box. Because I have what it is, it's a Mark II style fighting knife from Ontario. It's their Marine Combat 498. But I have a Camillus, I think it's post World War II knife that is like this. They were called K-bars back in the day. This Mark II style thing. K-bar took that name for their company after World War II. Maybe United Cutlery Co. or something like that. Some name, and then they changed it to K-bar because they're famous for their combat knives. But Ontario also made these for issue to the U.S. military. So this is an authentic military issue. This is what would be handed over to the government to issue to troops. So it's not like it's like a cheap knockoff replica. This is like just like their pilot survival knife. It's what would have been sent out, which is really cool. It's authentic that way. But in any case, I'll show you actually my pilot survival knife first. It's just funny because I had to dye this one black because of something that happened, but this one came black, so it's kind of nice that they match each other. It was unintentional, but I kind of had them on the table and went, oh my god. So first off, the pilot survival knife, I really like this. I've been carrying it for years now, almost every day. Whether I'm carrying it with my 357 Magnum or my CZ SPO1, I have this next to the gun. And I can do a cross draw. So if I have my gun and I, for whatever reason need to grab my knife, I can just take my knife out real fast. And plus, like, having it on my left side next to my gun is just convenient because I can grab it in the left hand. I really like these sheaths. I like that there's metal, like the aluminum here, because you can see where I've like dented it and like bashed dropped it or whatever, and like it's nice that it protects the bottom of the sheath and the back of the sheath from the knife coming in, because I don't want to get gouged in the leg. Has a nice little pouch for a sharpening stone. Everything's symmetrical and straight on the 499. This is not a mod, this is a 499, so it's a legit pilot survival knife. The blade, the knife itself, is really nice. I've used it quite a bit compared to other knives. I'm not really, when I say I use it, it's the hardest use I ever did was batoning a log that was like that had split with an axe. So I'm not talking about like hard use. I just cut stuff with it, or like do fire sticks or whatever. So it's got a little bit of wear, but it's not like crazy like some of these guys have with theirs. I take care of it. And I bashed little stakes in the ground, or like little sticks for making like layouts or whatever in my backyard. This is actually the stick I used to lay out my garden in my backyard, or the knife I used to lay out my garden in my backyard when I pounded the little sticks in the ground, running rope around it. All I ever had to do was just put little black spray paint on it, and it's totally fine. So I actually had a lanyard through these two holes. This is for lashing to a spear, but I just put a lanyard loop through it and ran my hand so I could hold it when I was doing stuff, but I took that off. It just kind of got in the way. Winnie the Pooh is going crazy. But it's 1095 carbon steel. It's got the saw there for pilots to be able to escape out of their aircraft or whatever if they crash. I have no use for it. Honestly, I wish they'd make this model with the fuller, because the mod does not have a fuller, but this 499 does, which just makes it stronger. A lot of people say that's for reducing weight. It is, but it also makes it stronger because the cross section becomes like an I-beam. So side-to-side flex, not that this would flex much because this is a pretty fat blade, but for knives that have fullers, they're stronger for it. Swords had fullers for that exact same reason. It just lightened it up and inadvertently, whether it was intentional or not, made it stronger. That's why I-beams are the shape of an eye. So it's got a nice ovular palm swelled handle. I really like, that's the reason why I carry this all the time, is because I love the way this feels in my hand. It feels better than any other knife I've ever held, and that's saying a lot because I've held a bunch of other knives and I just like this one. I like how fat and heavy it is too. It's not good at cutting paper. I don't need it to cut paper. I need it to open boxes and like, you know, do fire sticking and stuff like that. And I can do good fire sticks with this. It's just sharp enough to do that. It came nice and sharp. Point is very sharp, so a defensive situation. The swedge is also sharp, so it's got a good spear tip if I need to, you know, fight somebody to defend myself or my family. But it's a charming little knife. I had to dye it black because I was working on something in the garage and I got black ink all over this knife. This is the knife I had on my hip when I proposed to my wife. I took my wife to the Grand Canyon. She was my girlfriend at the time. And I proposed to her right in the middle of the canyon at a place called Plateau Point, right over the top of this, right on the top of this cliff overlooking the Colorado River. So I had this on my hip, and it went from being natural leather to like auburn, dark orange brown. It was really, really nice. Ochre, I mean, not auburn. But really, really nice, dark tan. Just from the sun, not from any polishing I did. And I was pretty upset when I got this ink product on it, so I just dyed it all black. And I actually kind of like it because it matches the holster and stuff that I have for my both for my 357 Magnum revolver and my SP01 CZ steel frame that I carry. So I'll put this right up next to it, and it looks like it matches. But getting into the new knife, this is a 498 Marine Tactical by Ontario. These were issued to the military. This is pretty much an exact copy of what was sent over. I think they produced these up into the 80s or 90s, and I think their new model is the SP1. It's got a different handle. It's like a synthetic or whatever. But I went for the old school because I have a Camillus, and it's not here. The reason why it was inconvenient, I was saying, because my Camillus is in storage not in my house, so I'll have to get it and do a video comparing these two because it's very, very close. There's just a few things that are not quite the same, but I mean, just the way the guard is straight. Well, in the Camillus, it's bent down, but that's not a problem at all. Other than that, this is actually a closer copy than the modern K-bars are to the K-bar style fighting knife from World War II. Mainly because of the handle and the finish. So there's a 1095 blade. It's got a full-length tang. It goes through the back there. It tapers down right at the end, so you can fit through this pommel. And then it's pinned through the side with a pin, like a barrel on a rifle. So it's very secure, very strong. They actually smush this leather down, and then because they make the handles longer, and then they use a press, and then they pin it through the side. So this is actually under compression. It's really tight, and it's not going to loosen up. And then the top here where the guard is, the leather actually overlaps a little bit. So it actually is sitting in a groove in this handle. So this guard isn't going to wiggle side to side. Very nicely put together knives. It is a round cross section to the handle, but it does have a nice palm swell, and the top here has this sort of column style. The capital on a column, if you look Greek buildings, they have the capitals on top of their columns. That lets me know where my edge alignment is if I choke up really high on it, and that's where I would put my hand, is right up there. So this rest of it being round is no big deal. I'll probably take my belt sander, just flatten the sides just a little bit to give my hand a familiar direction to point, because if I grab it here on accident, it's just a circle pretty much, so I need to choke up on it. So what I'm gonna do is just take my belt sander, just flatten it, not a whole lot. I'm just gonna flatten it just a little bit on the sides, and then file the grooves in if I lose a little bit of the grooving, because I like the grooves. So that way it'll be more like this handle on this 499, where this is a nice oval shape. It's like the shape of an egg, where this is almost a complete circle. It's almost the same shape as the pommel. So I probably will change that, but right out of the box, it doesn't feel too bad. It's got this nice sealed coating. A lot of people say it's antifungal. I don't believe that. I think it's just, I think it's the burnishing sealer. So when they burnish edges of leather, they put a sealer on it and then run the burnisher over it again. I think this is just that sealer. It's just like a It's like a synthetic product. I used to be a shoe cobbler, and we use it to seal the welts on boots all the time. So it's just that. It's just waterproof. And I have that same product in my garage, so I'll just reseal it. The guard is the same material as the blade, it's just carbon steel. This pommel has been sintered, so they don't have to have a bunch of carbon steel pommel rings, and they don't have to mill out the slot. They just have these sintered, and they come out like that, which is really neat. Like I said, the way they construct it, the tang is half the width of the blade, and so it's smaller, like a normal, like how you think a sword or like a file would be. Goes into this handle, they compress the leather in, and then they put the pommel cap on, and they run a pin through the side, and now it's all tight and secure. So that's how they kept these knives from like loosening up. They weren't just set on there and then pinned. They were smushed in a little bit and then pinned. It's a nice press fit. It's got a nice fuller on this knife, and I've had other issues with Ontario knives where their bevels are not like the edge bevel isn't even on both sides. This one is almost perfectly symmetrical. Looking down the middle, I was looking at it, and it's like they did a really good job. Sharpening, it had a burr all along the edge, and I just took a little bit of leather. This is not shaving or paper sharp at all, and I will change that out of the box. It is not like I can do this and not cut myself. So that's sort of a problem for a fighting knife, which is what this will be for me. I have this specifically for defense. Because our military use these for defense and just general utility, but I like these Bowie style K-bars. They're really cool. So I want to carry one. I've been carrying this thing for defense and utility for years now, and I like this. And having this in my hand, I really like this. This is nice. And the fact that it's got a bigger blade is more comforting to me because I got to defend my family. So I like that it's very plain. So I don't have anything against the United States Marine Corps. I want to make that very clear. I think it's, the guys who are in the Marines are some of the best dudes in the world. I have a bunch of buddies who are Marines or ex-Marines. I'm not a Marine, so for me to carry a knife that says USMC on the side, like K-bars usually do, and have a big billboard on the side of my sheath that says USMC with the logo, it just doesn't make sense for me. I am not a Marine, so I couldn't just rep that because that would take away the significance of somebody who did serve as a Marine being able to get out of service and carry a knife that they were issued in some form or another that has their military stamping on it for the Marine Corps. So it doesn't. I specifically went with the Ontario because I like their 499. It's very, very close to what you would have gotten in World War II, more so than the modern K-bars, because the modern K-bars are a different steel. They have a different finish, and the handle is not it doesn't look like this. It's very straight-walled and ovular. It's nice. The modern K-bars are great knives. They're hell and back knives. It's just I wanted a very authentic K-bar fighting knife. Mark II. So I went with the Ontario, and I'm very pleased with it out of the box. It's very nice and solid feeling. There's nothing wrong with it, except for the edge. The edge sucks. When I say sucks, I took a strop to it just now, and it can kind of cut paper now, but it is not able to cut paper easily. So I will be sharpening it and stropping it until it slices paper like nobody's business. The swedge is also edged, so for a defensive situation, if I have to jab into somebody's gut, if I'm keeping them preoccupied, if I'm not able to get my gun out, or let's say like for whatever reason I put my gun down when I get home or whatever, I'll just still have this knife on me. And it's a good. I mean, dudes have fought with these knives for decades and decades and decades. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. It does have these nice flat spots right here for putting your thumb on. So for doing like little tool work, it's good. There's a guard in the way for putting your thumb over the top for doing like fine work, but I can kind of wrap it around like this and cut like that if I'm making feather sticks or whatever. It's a big enough handle, and like it's far enough up on the knife that I can control it pretty well. Um, it's the same, so dimensionally, this is actually the same as the modern K-bars. It's the blade thickness is the same. It's like 0.17 inch thickness, 1095. There's this Crovan. This one's just carbon steel. They just add chromium and vanadium to the K-bars. Maybe it's a better steel. I don't know. But for a guy like me, I'm not like I'm not like running into combat, so you know, this is just fine. And it's the same material as this knife, so I'm perfectly happy with that. I really like everything pretty much about this knife, except for the roundness of the handle. I will just flatten it a little bit, and I'll sharpen the heck out of it, and that's it. That's all I'll do to it. The sheath it comes with is sort of nice. It's very authentic to the military issued sheaths. Well, take that back. So some of the sheaths that I've seen with original military issued knives had leather sheaths like this, and some of them had like the GI style, like fiberglass sheath. So I don't know what, you know, I don't want to say, oh, this is authentic to whatever it got. But I've seen World War II examples with leather sheaths that were exactly like these. So take that for what it is. My Camillus does not have a sheath. The one I bought, I got it at a gun and knife show, and it didn't come with a sheath. I just thought it was a badass knife, so I bought it. Didn't know anything about it, and then all of a sudden, Camillus knives, Camillus K-bar knives are like really cool. So it's like, oh, neat. The leather itself is actually very nice, and it's about as just a little less thick than the knife blade itself, which is cool. Very stiff. This is, I think, made in some other country. I don't think this is made in the US. I'll probably not use this sheath. I'll probably make my own sheath out of leather, because there are some things that I don't like about this. But for now, I'll carry it around with the sheath that it came with, which is no big deal. My daughter's singing. Yeah, it fits very snug. And like really snug. It's very nice. Good retention. No coming out. I was squeezing the edge here. I just didn't want to drop it. Snap. Some guys have been saying they have issues with this snap closing. It's a little tight for me, but mine closes just fine. So they did a good job with that. It's riveted into the back of this belt loop here. This is a huge belt loop for like web gear belts. So those big fat wide belts that were like Milsurp ones you get with those Alice vests or whatever. So that's cool. I can add this to my Rambo outfit. But for me, I'll probably take an elastic band or some kind and just cinch it right here, and then that way it's tighter to my actual belt, because my actual belt's about that wide instead of that wide. So but I will also modify this too. The edges they're like burnished, but they're not nicely burnished. They're just kind of, they put wax over the edge. I'm going to take it down to sander and actually round it a little bit, and then use a slicker and like make it a nice smooth edge, because it's sort of rough. Same for the top around here. It needs a little bit of love, but it fits the knife. It's really, you know, this is a classic K-bar look. And the term K-bar, what's cool is it actually, some hunter back in the day when before K-bar was K-bar, the United Cutlery Co. or something like that, some guy sent them a bear pelt, and he had killed a bear in a defensive situation with one of their knives. It was a Bowie knife, but it wasn't like the military K-bar. And according to that trapper, a knife that was used to kill a bear is called a K-bar, kill a bear. And so any knife that somebody used to kill a bear with was referred to a K-bar. So that name was so cool, it's held over to these like military knives that are big Bowie knives. And the name just stuck, and so it's just cool to know that this is, in some way or another, this is a bear killing knife. It just adds to the cool factor, you know, just for whatever that's worth. I just think it's cool that these are called bear killing knives. I couldn't imagine just I couldn't imagine like pulling this out knowing I'm gonna have to fight a bear with it. But I don't know why I wouldn't have a revolver on me or something, like a hand cannon at that point. But you know, never know. Maybe I'll fight a bear with it. Who cares? But yeah, overall, I'm very pleased with this out of the box. I will sharpen it, and I will flatten these round handles, round handle cross section down, so it'll match more with my. You can see how this is wider than it is fat. This is just the same all the way around. So I'll just be modifying it a little bit. The grooves are deep enough I can get away with it, and I'll just touch it up with black ink and seal it again. But overall, these are two great products. I've been very pleased with my 499. I would trust this with my life. You know, I took it in the Grand Canyon with me on a, you know, I used it pretty regularly there. Never abused it. I never, you know, batoned heavy with it, you know, did anything crazy with it. But with that in mind, it really is a nice, dependable knife. And it would be a good knife for, like, if you can get it sharp, you know, to give it to like your son or whoever for one of their first knives. Just make sure you seal the handle, because it is leather, and it could just, you know, with humidity or whatever, just make sure you put oil all over the handle and seal it with wax. That's what I did. And drop oil down into the guard and stuff, because it'll drip into the tang area and put oil all over the tang. That's what I did. I literally, when I got this, I set oil to it like for 3 days straight. Just put it in my garage and like had it like this, and then just dripped oil into it every once in a while. It would come back and the oil would be gone down into the tang area and just, you know, in there. Then I would drip it again. Funny enough, I, you know, just dropped it. I actually just cut my finger holding the, you know, grabbing the blade up. So, you know, I say it's not that sharp, but I definitely just nicked my finger with it. So, in any case, that's my 499 pilot survival knife. Again, these were issued to the U.S. I think Air Force and Army for decades and decades and decades. Almost exactly like this. Some of them didn't have the pouch in the front, and a lot of them, like, I think they made this aluminum guard like at some point too. That was a change, but these are almost exact copies of what was issued a long time ago. And then this K-bar style Ontario Marine Combat knife. Yeah, I'm very pleased with this. I'll leave it at that. I got to go bandage up my finger because I slashed my thumb off just now. Yeah, very cool knife. I recommend this. With the caveat that you can't expect it to. For whatever reason, Ontario has a trouble making sharp knives these days, and it's just one of those things. It's like, man, you know, what gives? You provide knives to the freaking military. Why don't you make the rest of your knives like paper sharp? Because I handled a SP1 and that was paper cutting sharp. You shave with it. This is not. So, which, you know, big deal. I mean, this is just like a, you know, memorial piece or whatever. But I will carry this, and it, you know, being that it is constructed the same way as the K-bars back in the old days, I have no problem carrying something like this. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'll be having a video on how to do the splits later. Right now I'm kind of hanging out. So, talk to you guys later. Yeah, like that. So, I sharpened it pretty well. So I just touched it and got my finger cut. I'll do the same thing for this. You guys have a good day. Bye.